Is there a stock price that Mr. Musk has his eye on?
In fact, we now see hybrids with more than 10% of the market share here in the United States.
Ford and GM have been doing a lot better than the pure EV trade.
Look, it's going to be tough. I'm more bullish about EVs than ever.
All that and more. So let's get to it. Tesla stock is up in the pre-market almost 0.5%, sitting at 171.90. For the week, however, Tesla is still down over 3.5%. And year-to-date, still down over 30%. I've already placed a protective put somewhere around 177.5 for the expiration of next week. While I still remain ever bullish on Tesla in the long term, gotta take advantage of the stock market not actually realizing Tesla's potential value.
If Matt Miller were here, he would probably ask this question, which is, when does Tesla really need a redo on the design of the car? We need a new version. I mean, it seems like the big auto comes out with a new version every 4, 5, 6 years. We haven't had that from Tesla.
Tesla only needs one model in each category. Much like the Model S, 3, and X, there will be refreshes of these individual products, subtle changes in exterior aesthetics, but more importantly, the technology within the vehicle will be massively upgraded. Not to mention the continuous over-the-air software updates that occur with each vehicle. Tesla doesn't need to introduce new models when they have the best in class in each category.
Well, the Model Y is due for an update, and we'll likely get one in the next year. The Model 3 just had one in the last couple months, and that makes these numbers even worse because you just had this update to Model 3.
Tesla had a hiccup at the Fremont factory with the refresh Model 3. I mean, Fremont isn't nearly as efficient as Shanghai, Giga Austin, or even Giga Berlin, but they're making do with what they have and learning a lot in the process. I have no doubt that Tesla will smooth out the production over there at Fremont. If not, I fully expect there to be another factory to be built.
Is there a stock price that Mr. Musk has his eye on? From 400 down we go to 175, now 162. How far down do the facts change for Elon Musk?
So just in terms of valuation, where it's currently trading, the down 7%, it's trading roughly 40 times 2025 earnings. And so if we want to put a point of where it's going to trade in line with, let's say, NVIDIA, for example, or Microsoft, you'd have to be right around $140. So still another 20 points of downside from here.
Not sure if we get to 140, but I guess if we can get to 150, 140, 135, 100 is in the cards. Again, I'm skeptical that we can get to those levels, but man, talk about bargain bin prices for the most valuable company in a decade's time.
Gene, how do you think Detroit is looking at this number in terms of how they're thinking about the EV market?
Yeah.
I think they're elated. I think that they're saying this was a smart move that we've had by kind of pulling back on some of the investments. So I think from Detroit, this is today is a victory. And I don't like using war analogies in business, but this is a battle. It's a war going on between gas and electric here, and this is definitely a victory for gas. And I think that the bigger picture is far from over.
Far from over indeed. I've always said Tesla's main competition isn't other EVs. It's the internal combustion engine. The conundrum that Legacy Auto is in is that they're on both sides of the war, needing their ICE sales to fund what is going to be the future. Hybrids are essentially a stepping stone to get to fully electric vehicles. The disruption caused by battery electric vehicles is going to leave the internal combustion engine and hybrids in the lurch.
Vehicle sales gaining traction, and the trend does not look like it's ending anytime soon. Phil LeBeau joins us now with more this morning. Phil.
It's not changing anytime soon. In fact, we now see hybrids with more than 10% of the market share here in the United States. This is what we saw in the first quarter. According to Motor Intelligence, they get the numbers from every automaker. They crunch them by model. They crunch them by the type of power system, if you will, for the vehicle. Look at that. EVs now 7.1%. By the way, that's the same year over year. ICE actually roughly speaking about the same, but hybrid now up to 10.5%.
There's only 3 categories in that pie chart. EVs are the same and hybrids are up. How does that mean ICE is about the same as well? But forget about that. Okay, so obviously as EVs grow, the internal combustion engine percentage is going to decline. Hybrids, whatever they're categorizing as a hybrid nowadays, I fully expect that category to grow. But what I also expect is for that percentage to grow into the EV. As the stepping stone, I expect there will be a lot of hybrid trade-ins when they go to purchase their next battery electric vehicle. The fear, uncertainty, and doubt surrounding owning a battery electric vehicle will dissipate. This is Q1 of 2024. I wonder what it'll look like in Q1 of 2028.
All right, Ford up again today. Renita Young's got the latest for us. Says Ford and GM have been doing a lot better than the pure EV trades, Renita.
They have. It's because they made a decision today, Ford, to pause on EV production right now and put that attention and resource categories or different resources toward the company's hybrid vehicles. And investors are applauding a couple of different things. Investors today are applauding that because it's going to hopefully help save the company some money, hopefully help reduce some losses in the Model E division.
Because they're definitely not profitable when it comes to their battery electric vehicle side of their business. What is their answer to this? Let's table this for the moment and wait for other people to innovate the space. That's one way to go about it. Probably gonna be the way that ends up bankrupting you though.
And then they're applauding it because it's the company fessing up to the fact that they got it wrong. You know, a lot of car makers got this EV shift wrong, but Ford is now going to be producing the all electric three-row vehicle in 2027 instead of 2025. And Ford actually said that the additional time will allow the company or allow for the consumer market for the three-row EVs to further develop and then enable Ford to take advantage of emerging battery technology with the goal to provide customers increased durability and better value. Sounds like to me they want to make sure they hit the right price when they do release these vehicles as well.
Oh my, it hurts. It really does hurt. Do what you think is best, Ford. I just know one thing. Don't be asking for a bailout at the end of the decade when you knew exactly what you were doing.
We're watching Tesla. It's clearly a huge subject of conversation. It's having a terrible year, right? It's down over 30%. The latest numbers were disastrous, according to some of the analysts. So, Steve, I'll start with you. People love Tesla. They loved Elon Musk's vision. Is Tesla going to rise from the ashes like a phoenix? Like a friend of mine said. I stole that. Is that what's going to happen, Steve Wesley, or not really?
Look, it's going to be tough. I'm more bullish about EVs than ever, but Tesla had a terrible quarter, and it's not a complete surprise because 3 of their major facilities in Berlin, they had arson. The plant was down for a week. No one saw that coming. China, they knew the plant was going to be down for 2 weeks for New Year's, and then you've got the plant in Fremont was down. Well, they did the refresh for the Model 3. But the big story here is the Cybertruck has been a flop so far. We'll see if they can fix that. And they're late on the $25,000 vehicle. That's what they need to do. But despite all the hardship, they still managed to produce more EVs than BYD last year. So give them credit for that.
Steve Wesley is absolutely right. With all the various trials and tribulations Tesla has faced this quarter, arson, the whole Chinese economic situation, and the Model 3 refresh in Fremont, in my eyes, the Cybertruck has been moving right along. I never expected them to make 100,000 Cybertrucks this year. And of course, I was disappointed to hear that the next generation vehicle had been pushed back. But delayed does not mean cannexed. And when this vehicle does emerge from the shadows, Tesla's total addressable market will spike. And if they're able to ramp this vehicle faster than that of the Model Y and in greater quantity, so many challenges in Q1 2024, and there's going to be plenty more to come in the next couple of years.
All eyes at Tesla have to be on how soon do they get that 25K vehicle into market and how successful is it with consumers. We'll see.
I'm not sure that the Cybertruck was ever supposed to be the moneymaker for the company. I think that was sort of the wow piece. But the cheaper model that they're working on now, and that's sort of one of the reasons they saw the weakness. You mentioned arson, you mentioned some disruptions in production, and also a change in focus to the cheaper model, the $25,000 model. Corey, do we see something great that could emerge from Tesla? Because everybody, so many of our bulls that come on are turning and saying, I don't know anymore.
Oh, the fair weather bulls. Much like fair weather fans, you gotta love them. As a Texans fan, I experience this on a yearly basis. Speaking of which, killer free agency from Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans. The fair weather Texans fans are out in droves, thanks to high profile additions such as Daniel Hunter, Joe Mixon, and Stephon Diggs. Meanwhile, the Tesla Fairweather fans are retreating, unsure about the short term, but remain mildly convinced that the long term is still golden? Get the f*** out of here.
Steve mentioned the Fremont facility, and I was actually driving near there the other day and saw a Cybertruck ahead of me. And I texted a friend who's a car geek, and I said, what are the odds there's a woman driving that car? And she texted me back saying, close to zero. It's a bro car. And it really does speak to the limited market that the Cybertruck has. And it matters because of the resources the company put towards that. As Steve points out, rather than spend the time and resources and effort and the thoughts of the great mind of Elon Musk to devote those thoughts towards doing something that's going to grow in the market instead of something going to be really cool that he thinks is cool to look at.
One, Kim Kardashian makes the Cybertruck look sexy. It is probably one of the most luxurious bro cars there ever was. Which leads me into my main point. The Model S, the Model X, and the Cybertruck are there for Tesla to test out new technologies. This is the testing ground for all of the mass market vehicles that Tesla produces. Model 3, Model Y, and the next generation vehicle are going to benefit from the sales and innovations in the Cybertruck S and X. The trickle down of the technology that you can afford to put in these mass market vehicles is priceless.
That's what the company has done instead of doing the thing that's going to help them out here. And I'll beg to differ with Steve out of great respect, but it is true. All the factories you mentioned were the difficulties that they had in the factories, and yet the overproduction. If you look at the numbers, they had over 40,000 more vehicles produced than sold. That's the biggest difference they've ever had between the production and the sales, and it really does suggest that they've exhausted to some degree the sales that they can achieve. They've hit some really big numbers here, bigger than anyone ever has in electric cars, but they've never been able to produce so much and sell so little by comparison.
One, a car isn't considered delivered until it is handed over to the consumer. So if it's in transit, it is still produced, it's just not delivered. How many vehicles do you think are in transit to consumers for Q2?
Look, you know, there's the low-hanging fruit, the people who everybody was on board. I want a Tesla, I want a Tesla, that's the low-hanging fruit those people all bought. You have stiff competition in China, and where they have a lot of subsidies and tax credits and ways for Chinese companies. And the idea here is that these Chinese companies, BYD goes back and forth with how many they produce versus Tesla. You know, the landscape has changed. Tesla's not the only player in town anymore.
They don't need to be the only player. They just need to be the best player.
The way for this to succeed would be more EV demand. That's what you need. And Steve, is that going to help Tesla? Is there going to be more EV demand for everything? We're not really hearing that from the likes of Ford and GM. They're focusing more on hybrids these days.
There's absolutely going to be more EV demand for the rest of our lives. There's about 80 million cars sold globally a year. Last year, about 14 million were electric. That's a huge number. This year, it's heading to 18 million. That's going to be over 25%. That's an inflection point by any standard. So more EVs are going out. The question is, who's buying them and what happens when you have more competition in the market? And the reality is, Tesla has owned the US market. They've done pretty well in Europe, pretty well in China. The Chinese are now coming with a vengeance. BYD and a lot of firms most investors haven't even heard of, like Li Auto, Geely, have great cars. And what's going on here is BYD is basically just owning the sub-economy markets. Right. That's basically 10,000 to 25,000. Tesla's got to get in that $25,000 market. I think they will. It's just a question of how long will it take.
Let's just say anything with a Tesla logo that is close to the price point is going to dominate that segment.
By the way, I disagree with you because I think that the Cybertruck, all you need is one soccer mom to say it's great, and then all the soccer moms will buy it. I was never a minivan person because my kids would say, well, you're a soccer mom. I was like, yeah, but I like a monster truck with big wheels. Like, you know, I couldn't be seen in a minivan. That was not my look. My look would be a Cybertruck.
Get 'em!
And I think there are a lot of moms out there who they go weightlifting and whatever. And I think moms are evolving into something cooler.
In conclusion, Tesla's disappointing Q1 2024 has many people thinking that maybe EVs aren't what we need. The answer must reside in hybrids. It'll be a long time before the consumers around the world just accept battery electric vehicles. I imagine this is what a lot of people that rode horses thought until parking spaces started to replace the hitching post for their mode of transportation. Either way, EVs are going to continue to grow, and Steve Wesley is absolutely correct. When Tesla blows open the barn doors when it comes to total addressable market with their next generation vehicle, it will become painfully obvious that internal combustion engines and hybrids are a thing of the past. That's all I got for you today. Be easy. Peace.